Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Adulting 101. As you guys know, if you've seen the other ones so far, this is definitely not an official series type of thing. If you want to check out the other ones that I've done, you can click the link up here to the playlist where you can watch all the other videos. Basically, I just talk about things that I have experienced as someone who recently has gone through the sort of transition from being a kid to being an adult. This can happen at any point. It doesn't have to be a specific time like when you go to university or when you get your first job. It's just basically the sort of transition that we all have to go through at some point and sort of the challenges that we face during this time. Today's topic is going to be being the new person or being kind of out of place in a new environment. If you guys have been following me for a little bit now, you probably know that in the past, let's say 5 years, I've been doing a lot of this. I've moved around quite a bit. I've done quite a bit of different types of things that have only lasted for a year or so. So I have constantly been the new person. I've constantly been put in this situation, but of course it's something that everyone has gone through at one time or another, and I think we will continue to go through from now until the end of our lives, basically. It's a good thing. It means that you're challenging yourself. It means you're putting yourself in new situations with new challenges. And overall, it's a very good thing, but it's also extremely stressful. Again, we've all been here, so you guys know exactly what I'm talking about, no matter where in your life you are right now. When you are the new person, despite the fact that everybody around you has been the new person in that environment before, it still makes you feel very separate from the rest of the people around you. Whether it's a new university, a new apartment, a new job, anything like that, despite how many times you may have experienced this in the past, when you get used to a certain environment and when you have been there for a little bit, there's a certain comfort level that you have learned to adapt to. There are certain parts of your routine, there are certain parts of just your everyday life that you do, and again, even if you've been uprooted before, you kind of forget how it feels when you've been in a good routine for a while. For example, when I was at my undergraduate university, it's been 5-6 years now, depending on at what point in university you're talking about, but it's been a few years. For example, I had this couch that I would go and sit on, and that was kind of just like my safe zone where I could do extra homework that I needed to do before class, or where I could take a phone call, I could take a nap there. It was kind of like my favorite little spot at university. There's nothing special about that couch. I don't miss that couch now, but I remember after I left university, and I guess right after that point, I had a little break, and then I went to Bristol, which moving to England was like a huge thing. You guys know that was the first time I moved from my parents' house, and it was just a lot of new stuff. And I remember missing that couch when I was there, just because I was at a new university and I didn't know where to go when I had those moments, when I needed to take a phone call, when I needed to just sit and do a bit of extra homework. All of a sudden, I didn't know where in the heck I could go at this new university to do that. And that's just one very specific personal example that I can give you. But of course, it applies to so much more than that. It applies to your friends and the people around you. It applies to where you go for lunch or for dinner, around wherever you live or you work or whatever it is in your life that's changing. Obviously, I moved to Paris about 6-7-ish months ago now, and I had a new apartment, I had to make new friends, I had a new job that I got pretty much right away, so it was a bunch of new stuff at once, and it reminded me how comfortable I'd gotten where I was before, and even then, I was only there for a short amount of time, relatively. Of course, not only is this extremely uncomfortable for you and you internally, but it also can affect how you might be worried that other people will perceive you, or how you just connect with your environment on a more external level. You might feel a little bit awkward in the streets if it's a new place, or if you have a new job, you might feel a little weird around your coworkers because they probably have like little inside jokes that they do that you've never heard about, or when you just get there in the morning, they know what they're gonna do, they know their routine and their responsibilities, and you really don't, and you still just trying to kind of figure it out, and it's very challenging. Again, what I want to sort of emphasize here is that it is a good thing. It does mean that you are challenging yourself to new things. Most of us don't live in the same place all of our lives. Most of us don't work the same jobs all of our lives. Of course, if you're a student, you're not going to be a student all of your lives, and you're not going to be a student at the same university forever. So it's always a good thing in the big picture, at least I think so. But in the moment, it can be very overwhelming and very stressful. So now that I've talked about it a little bit and just sort of my perspective on it, I want to give you guys a few tips that I have for when you're in a new situation. Again, be it a new place or a new job or university, whatever in the heck it is, I feel like these tips can be very helpful. At least I hope so. It's stuff that has helped me over the years and that I've just figured out over the years. So yes, these are just a few of the things that I've learned and I wanted to share with you guys. The first tip I have is more about about the social aspect of being in a new environment, and that's just to accept basically any invitation that you get from these new people. Most likely, if you're the one new person that's sort of jumping into this new social grouping, then they're gonna have stuff that's sort of normal for them to do, and hopefully they will invite you to it as well. And I say hopefully, but to be honest, in my experience, as long as you're open and nice with people, then the majority of times, unless you're really unlucky about the people you fall into social connection with, but most likely they're going to actually invite you to something. So I recommend that you just say yes. Within reason, of course, you guys know this, don't say yes to just about anything, but if it's like a normal social event, if it's going out for a drink or going to, someone's house and having like a house party or a dinner or something, then just accept the invitation and try and connect with these new people. At the same time, don't be afraid to send the invitations yourself and to offer to do something. I've done this before with new colleagues, for example, who were all friends with each other, who all knew each other, but there wasn't anything, they weren't suggesting to do anything, but I wanted to actually get to know them a little bit better outside of work, so I suggested, let's go for lunch, let's do something. And it can make a big difference because often, again, people are very responsive to this and would love to get to know you, but sometimes the invitations just don't come up and the opportunities don't arise, so you have to actually make the first step and put those opportunities in front of you. My next tip is to really, really throw yourself into this new environment. For example, if it's a new job, really, really focus during the day. Put more effort and more energy into your job than you would normally even do. Not that I'm saying you should not apply yourself at your job, obviously, but normally you don't want to exhaust yourself every single day, but when you're the new person, you're gonna have to put in that extra mile. If you do this, that means that you're going to establish yourself and get acclimated a lot faster than you would normally, and that's gonna help you out in the long run. It feels exhausting, and only do it within reason, of course, but one of the biggest challenges of being new is just the fact that you don't understand what's around you and you don't know how to do everything yet. You haven't learned the ropes yet, and the only way to speed that process up and to get acclimated faster and to get adjusted faster is to really put your all into it. Maybe that means putting your side projects on hold for a little bit and not working on the book you're trying to write, or not reading as much as you normally do, or maybe not going out as many nights a week as you normally do if that's your thing. Whatever it is that normally takes your energy, it might be a good idea to scale that back for the first couple of weeks. What this does is just gives your brain a little bit more time to focus on what is currently the biggest challenge, and that is being new, and that is getting used to that new environment. It's not permanent, definitely don't do this forever, but it's just a temporary measure that will help you get adjusted faster. Another little practical tip is to do everything you possibly can to remember names. Ask as many times as you possibly need to when you're a newbie, because I guarantee the longer you're there, the more awkward it's going to be later when you have to re-ask someone what their name is. This also goes for things like directions, like where are the bathrooms in certain buildings, and what restaurants are around you, and just basic things like that you're probably going to want to know, and that just get weirder and weirder. I'm not saying it's weird to ask, I'm just saying it feels weirder and weirder to ask these things later down the road. Also, people tend to be a lot more receptive and helpful when you are new because they understand, they've been there before, but the longer you're there, the more they might start to feel like, can't you just figure it out yourself? So you have a little bit of an advantage when you're a new person because you can kind of play the new card, and yeah, you can get a lot more help that way. At the same time, though, my next tip is to not bog yourself down in too many details. So this doesn't disregard the last tip that I gave you, this just means prioritize, basically, what's in your brain. So you're gonna wanna know details like names and directions and how to do things and what types of responsibilities you need to do. Those are all extremely important things, but don't get bogged down with all the stuff that you really don't need to know. This will help you just not overload yourself and not overstress too much. My next tip is to take notes. Incessantly, unashamed, be it names of people and places, or passwords, or random directions for how you're supposed to do certain things. No matter how confident you are that you're going to remember, just write it down for your own sake. There's absolutely no shame in this. People should definitely understand when you're new especially, and it will save you some re-asking down the road, or potentially some situations where you just don't know what to do because you didn't remember. I'm going to wrap up this list with one final tip, and it's a temptation I think that we always have, but it's one I think you should avoid, especially when you're new. Try not to compare whatever this new thing is, this new place, this new job, this new university, new class. Try not to compare that with whatever you had before. There's so much time down the road that you can compare if it's constructive for you at that time, but I guarantee when you're a new person and those first few weeks, those first few months, it's just not helpful, and it's really not very healthy, especially when it's the negative aspect, the one that's more tempting. Most likely when you're the new person in this environment, it's at least semi-permanent, so it's gonna last for at least a few months, maybe even a few years, but it's gonna be a semi-permanent basis. The worst thing you can do is when you're undergoing all these these challenges of being new and you're experiencing all of this stress and overload, the worst thing you can do is to try and compare it and to find the negative aspects that you weren't facing before. If in a few months' time you want to do that, if maybe it's a new job, for example, and you want to, after a few months, rethink and reconsider and find a different job or something, that's obviously something that can be constructive. But if it's just within those first few weeks, you're not going anywhere. You're not just going to stop and get a new job because you haven't even figured this one out. Same goes for a new apartment. If you've moved to a new apartment, you might after a few months decide to look for a different one, but during those first few weeks, you're not going to be going anywhere. Most likely you're going to commit to that for at least a few weeks. Same with university, it's probably going to be at least a semester. It's just going to upset you and add more stress to what's already a stressful time. So save that for later, save that for when it actually can be helpful to you to compare, and right now, just take this new environment as it is. So there you have it. There are a few of the things that have helped me when I was a new person in a new situation. Let me know in the comments, because this is obviously something, like I've said, that we've all experienced. Let me know if you have any tips yourself, or if you have any stories to tell that might be able to help other people who are in a new situation. Basically, if you have any thoughts about being out of place, being a newbie, any of that stuff, leave them in the comments below. I would love to know. This topic is also closely linked with the last episode of Adulting 101 that I did, which was all about moving to a new place, or moving overseas, I think it was specifically. So if that applies to you, if that's the new thing that you're experiencing, definitely check that episode out. It might have some helpful things for you in there as well. As always, thank you guys all so much for watching, and I will see you very soon.